Hello and welcome, everybody, and welcome to Around the Battleground. My name is LHS, and we got a lot to talk about. As you can tell from my voice, I am not exactly at 100%. I'm getting over cold flu. I don't know what it was. I survived international travel to Jamaica on my honeymoon. Came back, no problems, not sick. Survived going out, to PAX. Didn't get sick. Going out every night, hanging around everybody. Didn't get sick. Went out to the UGC Halo Classic. Again, traveled again, being around people again. Didn't get sick. And this past weekend, I go home. Well, not my home, my wife's home. We go hang out with family. And they infect the both of us. And I have not been this sick in a long time. So I'm getting over that. I'm a little mad that I got sick based off of family, because you expect oh, I'm gonna go to the con, I'm gonna get the PAX pox, I'm gonna get the con flu, whatever. No, it's family. Family did me in. So breaking, my fever, breaking all of that, feeling a little bit better right now. So we had to delay the show this week. There's a lot of issues going on. So I had some car issues. My wife was stranded on the side of the road. Couldn't get the car back. Had to go pick her up. All that yada yada yada. So we had to push back to today. And then today we were gonna go live at a regular time. But then it was like, you know what? It's Friday. We have the time. Let's do it beforehand. Let's get this knocked out of the park. Let's do it as soon after the finishing of our SPL as possible. So that's why we're here. There's a lot of cool things to talk about, interesting things to talk about, which is why I wanted to do this show this week. Even though I am sick, pushing through, the show must go on. There's a lot of stuff to talk about that I feel like needs to be talked about. Number one of which is last week on the show we talked about the Collegiate League. We talked about NACE, and we talked about how they were dicking over the entire scene. Since then, what had happened is they deleted the Discord that they had used to talk to everybody. So when everybody's biggest problem with NACE was their lack of communication, what was their brilliant move? Their brilliant move was to lock the Discord down so that we couldn't talk to them, and then delete the Discord so we can't talk to them. So NACE just not going well. And then everybody kind of found the super secret hidden NACE Discord, and then everybody got banned from that one. And they limited everybody's permission, so you had to be manually added to a chat. The whole collegiate thing for Smite has been very interesting. However, today we got the announcement after some cryptic messages. AVGL is coming back to Collegiate Smite. We're going to have two leagues kind of going side by side, head to head. It'll be interesting to see which one gets more views and more traction. I can already tell you that AVGL is going to have the better games, better talent, just because you don't have to buy into it. There's a lot of stuff going on with that. So AVGL came out. They're going to be running side by side with NACE. Not going to have LAN at Worlds, I don't believe. They're going to do everything outside of it. So NACE gets the world stage stuff, but both are going to be, gym prizes and everything like that. NACE obviously has the cash prize that they're putting up. But AVGL's back. We've got competition, and I think that's really important. It was one of those things where usually when something happens in the Smite community, we all get really mad. Everybody talks a big game, and then nobody does anything. This is one of the times when everybody was upset with something, and they all kind of banded together, and we enacted change. We made something happen. We made the AVGL come back. Everybody tweeted at it. Everybody, got together. AVGL is going to be, I believe, handled with Smite Prime. So we've got, some internal in-house stuff already in place within the Smite community that's now going to be implemented with AVGL, whereas NACE is like its own separate thing which contributes to it, right? It's an outside force that comes in trying to throw its weight around. Small scenes like Smite are not going to take very well to that. You look at Smash as well. Smash is like one of those things where it's a very tight knit community. So when something else tries to, something from the outside tries to come in, they're very distrustful of it and they don't believe what it is. They like the small aspect of it. So that I feel like that was a big important update because we did it. That I feel like that was a big thing. Having the ability to just not talk a bunch of smack, but also just make sure that everything works. So Collegiate Smite is back in 2 forms, so everybody can play. And they're gonna the AVGL. Yes, it's gonna have the college lock, but there is room for exceptions where if you go to a smaller college, which was another big thing, NAC didn't allow regions or anything like that. So AVGL coming in and learning. I think everybody kind of learned that college locks is really good. That is the way to go for college esports. Even if like the region based wasn't perfect and it let more people get involved, but when you have it as a central college, I think that gets more people involved and more interested and more deeply passionate about it because they can actually team up and meet. Well, it's like a group of people at a certain geographic location. I mean, that's why you're seeing all of these like geolocated teams with like the franchising with the Overwatch League and the CDL Call of Duty League, whatever. So anytime you can have something geolocated, something physical, that's always gonna be cool. So enough rambling about the college stuff. Let's get into the SML week number 9 here in North America. A little bit of more of the same. There is updates to be had. So we have Hype Unit at the top still. They've only had their 1 loss. This team coming in from the combine, really kicking ass. Doing a lot better than I thought they would. I thought there'd be some adjustment period, but this team really, playing strong, playing well. Sanguine, also very strong team, and having 2 losses, but still being a really strong team. I think both of those losses came from the same set against Hype Unit. They've only dropped 1 set, and that was to Hype Unit, I believe. Armada at the same. I think they had to forfeit a set or something along those lines. Maybe they got 2-0'd by Hype Unit. So very much a 3-horse race for North America SML. And then you see Cryptic and Exilium. Exilium having the 1 win. I will say that was from a forfeit, I believe. So good for them. They're on the board. And then at the bottom, you see the risky behavior. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about for a second, because that's the latest round of Smite drama around the minor league. And I'm scrolling through to go back and find the roster for this, but it wasn't a great roster. So I personally know several rosters that were submitted to High Res Skill Shot to take over the SSG Gold roster spot. And there were some ones that could have maybe made a run towards land. So there's a lot of things to start. Let's start with I guess we should start with what the roster actually is. It is Sumic. It is Xenotronics. It is okay. Here we go. I've got the link up now. Risky Business is filling in the vacant spot for SSG, and their roster is Hunter, Jeremy, Support Soul, Mid Xeno, Jungle the Muffin Man, and Solo Sumic. This pissed a lot of people off because this roster, I mean, who? Jeremy, who? The Muffin Man, who? Sumic, who? Xeno, Soul, if you've been around the combine and the circuit scene for a while, as a member of the LATAM Trainers Discord, formerly, Huevos en Fuego, the Kirmi team, the Exilium team, all that, right? I know Soul, and I'm really happy Soul like got a spot in the SML. It's really fun that basically all of the boys from way back on that squad are in the SML at some point. I think Bonjo's coaching Cryptic, right? So you've got a bunch of people from that one. Basically, they are like Salsa Squadron is like the greatest SML combine, circuit team. I think that group is like right underneath it. Whereas like they are like the next biggest stable of like people. So really happy Soul's in there. Zeno getting another shot at competitive, right? But when you have Sheikah and Hythe and all of these other people who could have been in the SML, it's kind of shitty. So the reason why this team got picked up was competitive integrity. That was the reason given, and that didn't go over well. Hythe did a whole stream about it, giving his thoughts and opinions on why they didn't deserve their spot, especially compared to some of the other teams that applied. I don't know that I could really find any of the other teams that were supposed to do. I know Hythe had put them up on stream, but there were a bunch of options that could have made it in instead of this one team. I mean, you look at Awesome Jake could have as a player should have been in. There's you look at Haddix, Glavis, like all those guys in the combine area. There were so many other teams versus this one that probably should have competitively been in. Exilium has been the weakest team in the SML, but now they might get a win because this team is in. That's how I feel on it. And I love Exilium to death, but they were the worst team in the league right now. And now they might get their first set of wins because of the quality that this team is. So that's a whole thing. The next thing about it is the payment for the teams, right? So this is the team. They aren't paying this new team, Risky Behavior, sorry. Instead, they're splitting the two payments up between Exilium and Hype Unit as the two teams are combined. So I think that's really cool. I'm excited for the guys to actually start getting paid. That's really cool. Obviously, I probably think that all that money should have went to Hype Unit because they are in first, right? So they take over that paid slot and get it in. But because they are splitting it between Exilium, who also made the promotion up from Combine, I think that's really cool. Good job, Hi-Rez. Good job, Skill Shot. You guys did a really good job on handling this on that aspect, regardless of whether or not the team that they added in with Risky Behavior is good or the team that they added, for competitive integrity lessens the competitive integrity of the league. The league is now a joke. There's no way at this point, with all of the drama, all the shit that's happened, there's no way the SML exists in its current form next season. It doesn't happen. Especially, after what Maddie had posted and things like that. I do not see the SML in its current form. I don't see the Combine in its current form staying around. They've got to make changes. They're going to tweak it, or it's going to go away entirely. Again, my entire theory is that they're going to fold the SML and the console league together into one giant, amateur pro-am league. Like that's a step between, just as the step below the pro league. I think, have it all online play instead of all LAN play. I think that's the best move going forward. Console already plays on LAN. Already plays online. So now, SML is going to be online as well. You're not going to move those to LAN environments. So it just makes sense to kind of fold that in. And then you have, Mondays and Tuesdays are now, you can it kind of frees your schedule up a little bit, and you can add more teams in. So if I was a betting man, that's kind of what I would bet. And maybe that's how they add in some of like the international stuff, but I don't, it's probably how do you fold in OCE and Brazil and all that in an online only event? You can't really, right? And at this point, would OCE even does OCE Smite still even exist after everything that's kind of happened? I don't know. I think at this point, everybody's kind of giving up hope on that. So I don't know. There's a lot of different ways the SML and the console league can be kind of combined. And I think, seeing how this worlds go will be very important. If we have another gangbuster season 3 worlds, it'll be amazing. If we kind of have like an worlds, I think we're gonna see a lot more just focus on the pro league and everything else that's kind of extraneous of that kind of go away probably. And on that downer note, we're going to move over to the SML EU rankings. That one is still, instead of a 3-horse race, it's more of a 2-horse race, with Simplicity and Flashpoint. Out Cold, still kind of right there with Queso. Horizon coming on strong at the end. They have found some really strong victories. Oh, they found a really strong victory over Flashpoint to kind of bring them back into the conversation, but I don't think there's enough time. They unfortunately are going to be, if the SML does go away, they are a team that's kind of getting the shaft. I really, there's a lot of good teams in the SML on both sides that if they had more time and could play together, I would love to see what they could do. Horizon's now showing like, hey, we're getting the hang of this. Simplicity and Flashpoint both kind of stumbled last week, getting losses, but come back strong. They both, Simplicity played, I believe Simplicity played Horizon. They get a 2-1, and then Flashpoint gets the 2-0, I believe, over Queso. So everything kind of stays the same on that end. Maybe it was a 2-1 for Flashpoint as well. I'm not entirely sure. We don't trying to get the statistics from Skill Shot for the SML is never the easiest thing. So I try to do my best, even with watching it, right? Nothing gets posted on a regular basis. So we have EU minor league, Simplicity, Flashpoint are more than likely going to be the two teams. Out Cold looking better. They finally have some things figured out, but I think it's too little too late. Queso and Horizon, kind of the same thing. I think they're just it is a 2-horse race between Simplicity and with Flashpoint. The biggest question is, can Flashpoint keep it together? Flashpoint has a history of late in the season falling apart, so I could very well see Flashpoint, starting to falter, lose. They've already lost a set to Horizon. Maybe Out Cold can run the gamut here on out and finish in that second place spot. I don't know. I don't want to say it's very likely, but at the same time, Flashpoint has a history of choking, so I wouldn't put it past them. It'll be really interesting to see how in the next couple weeks and everything kind of play out with those guys. Like I said, everything's kind of still up in the air. Nothing has been clutched in any way, shape, or form, I feel. So putting aside the SML, before we jump into SPL standings, there is the biggest piece of news to talk about in regards to the SPL, and it is the fact that Zeros has been kicked from Pittsburgh Knights. They are moving forward with Deathwalker mid and Rowe, their coach, going to solo. This is a very interesting change. I've been saying since the beginning of the season, this is a team that's going to implode. This is not a team that has the wherewithal, that has the fortitude. There's nobody on this team that keeps it together. This team is going to shake itself apart, and they did. With with Zeros, you kind of knew that it was a gamble. There's a reason he was removed, or not kept, however you want to phrase it, as the mid laner for Dignitas, and why they went with Hurry over Zeros. Zeros is very hard to work with and play with. Just very serious guy, and PK released a like a little behind the scenes docu thing around it, where it was like the trust wasn't there, we didn't believe in each other, everything like that, and he wanted us to play a certain way, but there wasn't reciprocated. There's all this stuff. If you didn't watch it, I highly recommend watching it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Having the kind of behind the scenes aspect of it really is really nice to have. We, as a talking head, I can sit here and say a bunch of stuff that I can see from the outside in, but then having the actual human element from the players. And this wasn't an easy decision. This wasn't something that they just like, oh yeah, this is what we do. And that almost never is the situation with making a roster change. I've been a part of a few roster changes, and it's never easy. You never do it maliciously, and it's like it's the hardest thing, because it's like, okay, we have this player and we have this other player. What are the pros and cons? If this works, it's great, but if it doesn't, we just kind of kicked ourselves in the ass, right? Like, there's so many different aspects, and you kind of weigh it from all situations. So I don't envy the position that PK was put in, especially like going forward. They're putting themselves at a huge disadvantage by having Roe, who's not even a former solo laner. He's a former jungle, and he hasn't played the game competitively in God knows how long. And they're putting him in the solo lane. And then they're moving Deathwalker, who is through and through a solo laner, and putting him in the mid lane. That's going to cause a lot of problems, I feel like. Or, I mean, what are they going to do? Put him on Yorm every game? Are we going to see him put in like, Wukong mids? I don't know. I'm very curious to see what his god pool will be if they do try to put him on like Guardians or like things like that, or Warriors in that mid lane, and what they put Roe on. As a former jungler, Thor is meta. Are they going to put him on Assassins over there? Like, what are they going to do? There's a lot of interesting ways they could go, but I don't think, I've said since the start of the year that I don't think the PK roster sniffs worlds, and I've qualified those, like, I don't think they get close to winning the world championship. I think there's too many personalities. I think they shake themselves apart. I don't think they have what it takes to go the full year. I don't, at this point, I'm starting to question if they make LAN. I don't know. And making LAN, right? Like, it's all LAN. I don't know if they make Worlds. I think PK now, I don't know that they win another set through to end the year. And with SK rising, with Obey rising, I think PK might just end up in the placement bracket. They have to play into Worlds. And if they get into that bracket, I don't think they get out of that bracket. I think that Obey probably doesn't make it out. But PK is not auto qualified, I believe. I believe that they, due to their loss to E United, they didn't clinch. And so SK could beat out PK. Okay, so no, here are the SPL standings. So they have already qualified for the High Res Expo. Pittsburgh Rival, Renegades, PK, United, Dignitas have all auto qualified. So SK is fighting to kick out Splice. That's very interesting. SK, got their wins today. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But just looking at this right here, it astounds me that PK is that third position, even though they weren't able to beat Rival, they weren't able to beat Renegades, they weren't able to beat United, they weren't able to beat Dignitas, they weren't able to beat Splice. How in the world did they manage to get, that third spot? It kind of baffles me a little bit. They never found a quality win over a top ranked team. They were the bottom of the top teams, and then now they've started to, like, United started to get above them and everything. I guess just having a decent first part of the season. So, there is the only possible answer here is for SK to beat out Splice, and that's not going to happen, right? So PK does make it to HRX. Cool. They're going to get first rounded. Simple as that. PK gets first rounded by SK potentially, or I guess because PK is in the third spot, they'd probably play E United, right? Something along those lines. I don't know. It's weird. Looking at chat, that's what I'm saying. Is it really worth making the change now versus playing the season out? I think with PK making this change, yes, it absolutely was like such a toxic, non-enjoyable environment that they had to make a change. This is a team that was visibly shook. Like, there was something not right with the team. Like, they just weren't playing at a way that they should have been. Things weren't going the right way. Look at SSG. Like, something is wrong at a team level. And now, you see the same things with PK. So them making the change, knowing that it would have to be Row. And I think I was trying to think, like, who would their subs be? Is like Homie FA still their sub? Would they not go Homie as their mid laner? That tells me a lot as well. Or maybe they're holding on to that for Worlds to see if he could play. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting things that could lead into. Looking at today, we'll look at our games from today. We have we started our day off with Dignitas and Obey Alliance on Thursday. Obey getting the 3-2 over Dignitas, starting their week off really rough. It was not great for Dig. They have kind of come into their slump. They are not in a meta that really suits them. This is a roster that, for some reason has choked, the last 2 years and now is starting to choke right now. Whereas we started off the year, Dignitas was a top team, world's aspirations, winners, like champions. They're going to do it. Finally, they are going to shake whatever rust off that they had. And then now they can't play the early game as well as the rest of the teams in the SPL. And that's really damning place to be, especially with where the meta is right now. And then what they are supposed to be the best at, which is, late game team fights, that's also not clicking. They're just, Dignitas is broken right now, and I don't know what needs to happen to fix it. I do think that switching Hurry and Ataraxia needs to happen again. Let Nate play in the long lane, put Hurrywin back in the mid lane, make that change happen. They brought it out back with Obey, and I don't know. I think they're putting too much stock in that little, like, that change, and I think they need to stop and they need to go back. You play something more comfortable. Everyone's trying to emulate what Renegades was doing with Funball on mages, right? That works because of who that team is. So just because you're going to start emulating it doesn't mean that's going to work for you, because that's not your style of play. Play who you are, and you could probably win more games. Dignitas, they've already got qualified for Worlds, but they also are in trouble of getting first rounded. They are falling out of my favor just as hard as PK has. I've ridden PK really hard, and now it would be, I would be remiss if I didn't start riding Dignitas as hard, right? Cuvo, Fred, Trix, Tank, Variety. These guys, Cuvo and Trix specifically have been teammates for a while now. And I guess did that Dignitas team start with Variety too? I'm unsure, but those guys always have problems in the clutch. It feels like Nate has always kind of had his problems as well. I don't think Nate has had as good of a year as season 3. I think that was his best year ever, and I think he's kind of fallen back every year after that. It's hard to watch, and I don't know what can really be said, what the problem is. They're just not playing cohesively. They're making really dumb mistakes. It's watching the Dig team from the start of the year and watching the Dig team now is like watching two completely different teams having very different ideas on how you play the game and just lacking the same skill sets. I don't know how to fix Dig, but I think they went too far into away from Arkle and Zeros. Looking back on it, Nate is probably a bigger leader than Arkle, but I think Arkle was the better hunter. And then looking at Hurry to Zeros, I think Hurry, if they kept Arkle and just replaced Zeros, I think maybe this team does better. So am I blaming it all on Nate? That doesn't seem right. I don't feel like that he's the problem, right? I think a lot of problems comes with Trix Tank, being, out of position sometimes, making really bad mistakes. And then Cuvo as well, just like he hasn't been carrying as hard as he could, and he should be. It's really awkward. And then you got Variety also making dumb plays in the solo lane that was on display today. It was really hard to watch. So Dignitas is just, maybe they need a roster change, but who do they change? Like, there's no one person I look at and like, oh, yeah, you need to get better. I mean, you look at Cuvo, who do you replace him with? I've been saying, replace adapting with Weekend. Do I replace Cuvo with Weekend? Maybe. Honestly, the way the Weekend's been playing and the what you get out of him, I don't know. I think what the biggest thing with Dignitas is they just need to figure out how to play their game of Smite. And I think until they do that and stop copying the league around them, impose their game plan instead of having, copycats of others, that's gonna be a big deal for them. Obey, on the other hand, looking good, looking like they have some hope. Obey looks decent. I think Weekend hasn't had help, and all of a sudden, with Mineral added to this roster, Ducky has started to step up. Wowie has started to step up, and Moswell is making me eat my own words. I have long said that I don't think Moswell is good. I don't think Moswell was that good on Splice when they won Worlds. I think he was just very the meta was really kind to him because all he had to do was press 4 a lot and not die. And now on this Obey roster, he is really showing out and showing me and proving me wrong. And I take back what I've said about you, Mr. Moswell. You are a phenomenal mid laner, and you are a linchpin to this Obey squad. Weekend didn't even have insane games, and yet still they were able to win because of everybody else around him kind of stepping up. And that's what this Obey roster needs. And I'm excited to see them grow. I wish they could have had this level of spark, weeks ago. Our second game of the week was Splice SK. So Splice did Splice things. They beat up on SK. It was a 3-1. SK took a game. But largely, it was just Splice looking at the better team. I don't think Splice, I think Splice auto quals for World at this point. I don't think SK can really jump over them. I just think there's no way, barring some massive like blow to the Splice roster, that they don't auto qual for Worlds. At the start of the day, Renegades played Obey. Obey looked pretty good. They still get 3-0'd by Renegades. Renegades is the best team in the league by far, showing it week in, week out. They are looking better than they looked going into MSI, and they look like they might be able to recreate, their undefeated run through MSI at Worlds. We ended today with Dignitas and SK. Dignitas coming off of their loss to Obey, definitely want to get the wins here. And then they lose. They get 3-0'd by SK. I know SK has had it in them. They are one of those teams that has been on my bubble, like that mid-tier team that could take games off of the number one team. And I think Dignitas has slowly but surely become a mid-tier team along with PK. I want to preface that. I think E United has grown from a mid-tier team to a top-tier team. I think SK hasn't been consistent enough, so they're still just a mid-tier team. But I think the gap between them and PK and now Dig is negligible. So SK come in, they get their 3-0 over Dig, and they're looking strong. The top end of the Smite Pro League is looking really, really good, looking really, really strong. I've said that this is the best year for competitive Smite ever. I'm really excited to see what happens with Worlds. I hope we get some really, really good 5-game sets. I want to see everything I want everything to go to the limit. I don't want MSI where Renegades was 3-0ing everybody, Splice was 3-0ing everybody. I don't want to see that. I want to see really good competitive back and forth games. And I hope we get that this year, and I think we can. SK catching fire really like they did last year, honestly. Like they did as Trifecta last year. At the end of the year, they really just all of a sudden they added Paul and they added Sam, and then they just kind of took off. Sam and Paul have been kind of quiet a little bit, but now they're coming back and they're really returning to form. Belair, he had some off weeks here as well, being strong. Zapman, Zap is having, I think quietly, or maybe not so quietly, one of the best years of his career. And then Neil perfectly embodies what, this meta is. So I think SK, where other teams are like faltering because this meta isn't them, I think this SK roster is thriving because it's exactly who they are. And I think they are one of the reasons why the meta is what it is. Especially, you look at SK, you look at Renegades, you look at Rival, you've got these teams that just want to press W and they just want to go fight it. You look at Splice, they want to go do that. They are what's making the meta what it is. Usually before this year, we'd have an NA meta and an EU meta, and the NA meta was always very much a very punch you in your face, go press W. And the EU meta was, we're going to sit back and we're going to farm for, 20, 25 minutes. And then, maybe we'll do some skirmishes around objectives, but, none of this running around killing everybody every so often. No, we're more sophisticated than our NA brethren. But now, they've got all the teams kind of scrambled up. The NA meta is what's really shining through. NA is showing like, hey, we can do the farming stuff too and the objective play, but we're gonna be aggressive about it, right? And I think that's kind of one of the bigger things that we've seen this year is just like the coupled with like the calculating objective control. There we go. Good Lord. So I think SK definitely is one of those teams to look out for. And I think we're seeing a lot of late season upheaval, as marked by the episode's title. Whereas PK and Dig were probably favorites to, make some noise at Worlds. For now, they're looking to maybe get first rounded. So that's, that's not what you want to see. But I mean, I like that we're getting some new blood kind of in there. I like that we're seeing, the Obey guys, not even new blood, just like other teams getting their shot to be, really good and competitive. Looking ahead at our next week of games, we've got Splice. No, sorry, that is this week. We're going to look at next week. We've got Luminosity and Pittsburgh Knights. We've got Rival SK and Rival Luminosity. Short week. And, honestly, there's only one good game, maybe two good games, depending on what your kind of definition is. Luminosity Pittsburgh Knights is an interesting game because we'll see what they look like in a post-Zeros world. I honestly expect Luminosity to win this game. I don't have faith that this new PK roster with Deathwalker mid can win another set this year. So I think this game goes to Luminosity. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Deathwalker's and Nuts mid. Maybe they have a plan. Maybe Rowe is, been playing solo behind the scenes. It'll be interesting to see. But smart money is probably on Luminosity because they've looked hot. They've looked good. And PK is on the downward spiral, whereas LG is on the upward spiral. Next game, the game that I'm really excited for, Rival versus SK. SK coming off their 3-0 of Dignitas. Rival looking really strong, has a commanding presence in the SPL right now. I think, Rival's a third place team, just under Renegades and Splice. SK, we'll see how for real they are. This game could go to 5 games. Could be a 3-0 for Rival. It really matters which SK kind of show up, and I guess to a certain extent as well, which Rival team shows up. There's been a lot of upsets going into the later into the year, so SK beating Rival would just continue that trend. However, I don't think SK is gonna beat Dig and then beat Rival the next week. I think Rival takes this game. Maybe not a 3-0, maybe a 3-1, maybe goes all 5 games. It's a 3-2, but I do think Rival at the end of the day walks away with the W. And then ending out our week, Rival versus Luminosity. Luminosity's looked good, and while I do think they'll beat PK, I don't think they have what it takes to beat down on Rival. Rival's going to come in and just do Rival things and beat LG into the ground. I don't think that's really that controversial here. I don't think anybody else would disagree with me. So that's what our week currently looks like. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. We're getting down. I mean, Worlds is only, let's see, it is September 27th and Worlds is November 15th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks-ish away. That's it. So we're getting down there, and we still have the placement rounds to go. There's a lot of stuff that can change still. We've been following the SML and we've been following the SPL. However, I mean, you also got to look at the SCL and think a lot of people have kind of quietly forgotten about Hype Unit Console Squad. I know for a fact that they have been grinding. They've been scrimming against PC teams as much as they can. I think they're going to be a lot better than where they were at MSI, and they were already good then. I think a lot of people are going to sleep on them, and then they're going to remember, oh yeah, the console team, they were okay, right? And then they're going to punch some team in the mouth, and everyone's like, oh, console, huh? So that should be fun. And not even just Hype Unit, right? Blanche Fan Club, also a really good team. I don't think they're getting enough credit for, what they've been doing. It's such a good year for competitive Smite, and I hope we kind of see this trend continue and we have it kind of bleed over into next year as well. I want to see the minor league console league kind of continue to grow. Maybe, and then I don't know, Combine is still really good, but maybe have, a little bit more structure to all of that. I don't know. It's been one of the best years we've had. So what kind of critique can you give anyway? I think with the promotion from Combine to SML, I mean, that was needed, roughly handled. And then you have like the new team that was just kind of chosen at random, essentially. That's, going to rub people the wrong way. But, overall being good. Yes, there is chat interaction from the host. If you guys have any questions, if you guys have any takes you want me to break down, usually we just don't have any chat, so I don't actively seek out questions from you guys. If you guys have anything you want to bring up or discuss, let me know. I'm more than happy to talk about anything. Usually it's just me giving hot takes and then, either putting those on Twitter or just like letting them sit and go away. I still am sitting on my clip from last week that, would I trade adapting for a weekend? And I think I would. I think I still would. Especially, I think one of the big things that is going to be overlooked, and I think we're going to see more changes with the meta as well, and it's going to be really interesting. I think the new Heartseeker is going to swing the meta pendulum back towards really hyper burst, like assassins and things like that. So I think, that's going to benefit Weekend. I think that's going to benefit Cuvo a little bit. I think, probably doesn't impact Captain Twig that much. And so we're going to see some teams kind of rise back up. And I think, there's still one big meta shift in the wings that could potentially happen for Worlds. I think a lot of people are still, it's still going to be the invade meta for a while, right? But I think we're going to start getting more hyper carries out of the jungle and having a lot more damage out of solo laners too. I think Heartseeker on a bunch of solo laners makes them kind of busted. So it'll be fun to see the experimenting of like with new picks and things like that. And I think with, between the SML and between SPL and how much people experiment with everything these days, I think there's still some stuff that'll come up that'll be really surprising. So chat, if you don't have any questions for me, I'm going to start wrapping the show up. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for coming out. We'll be back next week at a regular time, Wednesday, at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, so we do have one question. Why would I want to see Weekend over adapting? Because Obey is showing more success. So why I would want Weekend over adapting? I've broken this down a few times, but my reasoning is I think adapting's biggest thing in the past was that he was so mechanically better than everybody that he forced everybody else to make mistakes. And it came across as him being very patient, right? And I think that as the years have gone by, that gap has changed. And I think adapting this year has been very impatient. I always cite they got the win over somebody and they were like, oh, wow, adapting. You had to you did all this great comms with your teammates. Like, how did you, what kind of talk to us about what happened in this play where you kind of blinked in? And he's like, well, I just fucking blinked on him was his exact response. Whether my team was there was the blink play on Hebo where he blinked, misses everything, and then dies, and then his team like loses the game. That has happened, I feel like, more this year than any time else. And I think PK as a roster, as a team, needs somebody that can bring everybody together under one vision. And I don't think there's anybody on that roster that does it, right? So you look at past teams, past years. Jeff Hindley has always been the like anti-tilt guy, the guy who brings everyone together in like is good, calm shot caller guy, right? You look at Weekend. Weekend is a do it my way, the highway. That's how he's portrayed. He's got a lot of comms. He's got a lot of ideas on how to play the game. He's very vocal. So I think if you put Weekend in the jungle for PK and you still had zeros, right? That would be an interesting switch because he is going to lead that PK team a little bit more, right? I think, the more I think about it, like, I don't think it works still because Zeros is going to clash with Weekend, right? But if you could somehow make that work and he respected Weekend, I think there's a lot of change that could happen, right? So the reason I like Weekend over adapting on PK specifically is just the shot calling, the leadership aspects, all of those kind of intangible things, and the fact that like Weekend just had like a nuts year. I think Weekend has been a better jungler than adapting this year, and that's like a controversial statement, but I think he's if you put Weekend on a better team and he's playing the way he has been, like you might be talking about him as like an MVP of the year from how well he's played. So that's why I like Weekend over adapting. My way, the highway is supposed to be the reason they drop zeros, though. Yes and no. Like, zeros is just really hard to play with. I've heard stories behind the scenes, and I'm not going to divulge some of the stuff that I know. I just know that zeros is very hard to work with. And Weekend, I said, like, my way or the highway. It's just like the idea of like a shot caller. He's like, no, I'm making the calls, right? We can play the game in different ways and styles, but I'm going to make the shot calls and you're going to listen. Like, and I feel like it's kind of different idea sets. But all right, so that's it for me, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We're going to be back Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget, if you want to watch the VODs back, you can go to our YouTube channel, UGC Events, right? Producer, is it UGC Events or UG Studios for our YouTube stuff? It's still events, right? We'll put links down there in the chat if you want to follow those along. Here, I'm getting confirmation from chat. Yes, events, UGC Events for our YouTube page to go follow us. We've got, not only my show, but we've got a Fortnite show. We've got, a Halo show. We've got Overwatch. There's so many cool things to go watch on that. And then if you want to listen to our podcasts, you can find them on Spotify. You can find them on iTunes, and you can find them on Google Play. So anywhere you want to go, we go there with you. So that's it for me. And from around the Battleground, I'll see you next time. I messed that up so bad.